The State Authorization Reciprocity Act, also known by the acronym SARA, is a voluntary agreement among post-secondary education institutions that establishes comparable national standards for interstate offerings of post-secondary distance education. To better understand why such an agreement is necessary, one must look to the past. The Constitution specifically outlines which powers the federal government assumes. Education is not specifically noted. This indicates that education falls under the aegis of the 10th Amendment, reserving the power and right to the state or the people. In most states, education policy is assumed at the state government level. A series of acts and federal regulations brought rise to Title IV, which is federally subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. However, in 1992, the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act, also known as the HEA, included wording that denied funds to students whom attended institutions that either offered more than half of their courses correspondence or that enrolled in more than half their students in such courses. What educators did know was that the distance learning courses were on an undeniable upward curve, but the questions began to emerge: how to retain federal aid packages for students and reduce administrative costs of working through multiple agencies and state laws, when the landscape of education undeniably was evolving into a new wave of education. Several acts went through Congress over the years, and portions of the HEA were repealed. In 2010, amendments to the HEA aided in further complexity in terms of state authorization. Due to rising concern, the changes did not go into effect for another 4 years. Online and web-based enrollment all the while was steadily increasing. The challenges facing colleges and universities trying to navigate through ambiguous and often contradictory state and federal regulations gave rise for the need for educational continuity across state lines. Distance learning was crossing state borders, and according to the National Center for Education Statistics, in 2003 through 2004, the amount of students enrolled in entirely online courses was 15.6%. In 2007 through 2008, the total increased to 20.6%. By 2011 and 2012, the total had skyrocketed to 32%. Moving into 2015 and 2016, the overall number of students enrolled in post-secondary institutions had decreased from the year before by nearly 150,000 students. Meanwhile, students enrolled in distance learning courses had increased by nearly 330,000 students. That's a 6% or more increase per year in students enrolled in online coursework, and the trend has stayed steady with continued interest and growth in distance learning programs across the country. Quickly rising enrollment and discontinuity between state laws led to legitimate concern of consumer protection. Some states had lax or no regulations for out-of-state institutions. This led to credits that either held little weight, could not transfer, or simply did not count towards degree requirements. Furthermore, changing legislation led to greater hardship in obtaining federal student loans from certain institutions. University and colleges knew that a linchpin in students' academic careers centers around financial aid, and consequently, according to the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, quote, thousands of institutions are required to contact and work through as many as 54 states and territories, and sometimes with multiple regulatory agencies in those states. Q. The State Authorization Reciprocity Act. A national approach seemed the only logical and logistically feasible solution to help higher education institutions assure continuity, legality, and equitable access to all students. SARA provides more efficient and uniform standards, is more effective at dealing with quality and integrity, and a cost-effective solution. Laying out a framework for state-level reciprocity, SARA gives governance structure, which is implemented through 4 regional higher education compacts. Meanwhile, a national council ensures comprehensive national coverage. In short, SARA creates a dramatic improvement on access and simplifies the process while reducing frustration on the government and consumer level. So what does this entire policy mean for Idaho State University? What areas need addressed in order to keep ISU compliant with SARA? Idaho, was accepted as a part of the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement through the Western Interstate Commission, which is one of the 4 previously mentioned compacts. Joining in 2014 and renewing in May of 2018, ISU is a valued addition to SARA. The state coordinator for Idaho is Valerie Fensky, who is the private post-secondary and proprietary school coordinator for the Idaho Department of Education. It is through her that all eligibility requirements are initially verified for each institution. Some requirements include being a state-accredited post-secondary institution and paying the fees to be a part of the Act. 3 areas in which Idaho State University should focus their greatest efforts to ensure SARA compliance are 1. Monitoring and knowledge of updated SARA bylaws. 2. Knowledge and assurance that interstate agreements cover all the elements of SARA, especially in ISU's popular distance learning agreements like pharmacy and occupational therapy. And 3. Lastly, ISU should focus their understanding and relationship with the Western Interstate Commission. In conclusion, SARA provides relief from financial and time constraints for the university and student body. Its ability to create a near national education agreement is a welcome relief to students who no longer use traditional class time or locations as they once did. Thank you.